Right now, I have Professor Anthony Kila with me in the studio. Professor Kila, good to have you.
Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm sure the others will join us
Later
in due course. Well, I've had Dr. Muda Yusuf commenting on a number of subjects, from the latest developments with regard to the tax reform bills, and the governors are backing President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, particularly on the issue of value-added tax, which has now been reduced from 60% derivation to 30% derivation. And then you see how some conscientious objectors, like Senator Ali Ndume, and also, the ASU leadership are raising questions about NEL Fund and TED Fund. Then we talked about Nigeria becoming a partner country in BRICS. We talked about Trump was one of the things that came up. We talked about the release of hostages, in the crisis between Hamas and Israel. So those issues were the things we try to look at. I don't know whether you have objections to some of the views expressed.
Well, not real objections. Maybe some comments. Let's start from where you stop. Maybe we start from the Israeli-Hamas issue with the release of the hostages, which, as Dr. Muda Yusuf said, is a good thing. We can't but be happy when hostages are released. Of course, it makes one think, when you think some people have been there for 15 years. It tells you how government can be slow and not as powerful or effective as we imagine. I just want our viewers to imagine somebody being kept for 15 years as a hostage. Those are kind of very tough situation. So one is glad it's over, and one hopes that this continues. I doubt the influence of Trump in this matter. If he has any influence, maybe indirectly, because this is a deal that has been going on. But then again, he's going to be president, barring any extraordinary circumstances, in less than 36 hours. So I guess it is okay for him to be part of any conversation that is going on. I suspect we're going to hear more of this, but in terms of expectations that Dr. Yusuf touched as well, I think good or bad, whatever Trump does, I believe he has carte blanche to do anything, because in reality, there's nothing terrifying, if you don't agree with him, that he might do that he has not announced before that he's going to do. He can only do less. If all of a sudden he starts to deport people, he can only deport less, because he made it clear he was going to deport anybody deportable. He did not talk about people with criminal records. He talked about illegal. And besides deporting illegal immigrants, he expressed a philosophy, a xenophobic philosophy of the famous, these people are coming to take over our jobs, so let's get rid of them, which, you might want to do some sums if you benefit from it, but it lacks the humane empathy and global view of the world. The world being, humanity and everybody part of the human race. It was very toxic and very clear about that. And it is important for people to know that this is what democracy is about. It's not about virtue. People can actually vote a person that you don't think is right. As long as the vote is transparent, it's not a corrupt vote, it is legitimate to do such.
Well, sorry to interrupt you, Professor Anthony Kila. I'll still come back to you to address the other issues, one after the other. But let's take a short break, because Professor Aworawo is with us in the studio now, and Mr. Jide Ologun also just walked in. We'll take a quick break for them to take their seats, and then the program will continue. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Well, we have a full complement now. Professor Anthony Kila, Professor of Strategy and Development and Institute Director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies. Jide Ologun, legal practitioner and national development advocate, and Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos. before we went on that break, Professor Kila, you already commenting on Trump.
Yes.
But there were other issues that we addressed, with our guest, Dr. Muda Yusuf. I forgot to mention this increase in fuel price. As a result of,
the hike.
The hike internationally, the benchmark crude.
Well, I think, with Trump, we're done, but I think things can only be better than feared with Trump. It can't be worse than that. I can't see him doing anything worse than he has announced. He can only do, better things than that. At least for those who have great expectations for me, good luck. For those who do not, they should just take it on the chin and moved on. I tweeted a few weeks ago that one of his nominees, after he has been, being presented as the champion of anti-gay and family values, was a man that is happily married with a child, in a very sensitive position. So those who said they voted him for those values should take it on the chin and know that that is politics. We come home to our petrol issue affected by the war. You made an assertion, and I think Dr. Yusuf went from sociology to philosophy. He went from what is the situation to what the situation ought to be. You ask him if we are at the mercy of market forces. Well, technically we are, and we should expect, this is the whole point of saying no more subsidy, deregulation. What happens is that the consumer feels the impact of the turbulence in prices. If the prices goes up for any reason in the world, whether it's war, whether it's a breakdown, or it goes down because there is increase in supply, the consumer feels it. That is what happens when market is at play. That is what happens when there's no subsidy, when the market is deregulated. Where there is any kind of intervention like subsidy or the market is regulated, the consumer is cushioned from the immediate turbulence in the price. That is the reality. Because of the open and direct system, unprotected, I dare say, system that we have now, we're likely to feel the effect. So that is what's going on. What can be done, in my view, are two things, and I think it was said. Number one is to increase the supply of the fuel itself, the petrol in this case, and other derivatives, by making more refineries work as soon as possible. I think we need to focus on that and push for it. The other is to diversify our sources of energy. The CNG, I can't remember if you mentioned it or Dr. Yusuf mentioned, the CNG thing has been talked about, but I want our viewers to look at themselves and see anybody in their room right now or anybody they know that is actually using the CNG thing. That will give you a straw poll. That will give you an idea of how popular or how vast the implementation of that is. We need to look more into that, and we need to look at more sources of energy as well. I think the other thing that was then discussed, besides the petrol, the Trump issue, and the release of Hamas, was the BRICS thing. I think, I think a strong case needs to be made, because Nigeria, like most African countries, we tend to join anything joinable. And I'm not against the BRICS for any reason. All I'm saying is that in 2025, for where we are in our lives now, every step we take should be very deliberate, and it should be clear why we're going there. What is the potential benefit, and what is the cost of going there? And it should be very clear in our mind, if it's worth it or not. We should do a very clear analysis. I mean, besides some people getting appointments to go and represent Nigeria there, that is an individual thing. But if for collective, we should have a very clear path for a very simple reason. If we have a clear path, then we can do well there. If we don't have a clear path, we just join because it sounds like something good, then we might miss out. But I believe that BRICS is a valuable but also going to be a controversial union going on. Because the vision of the people who truly understand BRICS is not something you walk into easily. We need to be careful what we're getting ourselves into.
Tax reform bills. Maybe I should let Professor Aworawo take the floor, and then all the international issues, BRICS, Trump, and also the release of hostages in the first phase of the deal between Hamas and Israel.
Yeah, I begin with the tax reform bill. When I spoke about it a fortnight ago, I did state that I hope that at the end of the day, the baby will not be thrown away with the bathwater, and that the baby will not die, even though it had flaws. I did also point out that is he Oyeleke? What is his name now? The taxman?
Oyedele.
Oyedele, that the point he made here, sitting where I'm sitting now, that just two issues that he can resolve in 5 minutes. I also said that is not true. That is, that is simplistic. And by the way, the Oyedele man is looking very radiant. It's good to be in government. When you see him now compared with what he was a couple of months ago, is very different. In fact, I didn't mention that the other week. Well, that is just by the way.
That's the guy who was heading the task desk for Africa.
Did you see him that day? He's very different from any Oyedele I've ever seen. Anyway, that is
okay. Maybe he's happy that significant progress. I don't know what you are insinuating.
Let's just leave it at that. But you see, I'm happy what the governors have done. They've been able to clean up several parts of the bill. Even though I'm not happy that derivation is 30%, equity is 50%. I would have wished it were the other way around. Derivation 50%, equity 30%. We also talked about state, local governments, how they can contribute to national development. Instead of just waiting for what others have, generated to share. If they had made 50%, derivation, it will make those who have not worked hard enough to think of how to work hard enough to earn enough. This idea of, just give to people who have not produced. We should share, but it shouldn't be significant enough to make people lazy. But I welcome, apart from that, every other part of the, inputs they've made, I think they all make sense. And of course, I was also lamenting about TED fund. How can anybody on planet Earth ever contemplate, TED fund disappearing in 2030? In fact, the Ghanaians have copied TED fund. When over the year they've seen how significant progress that higher education Nigeria has made because of TED fund, they've copied it. In fact, my friend in Ghana, who works with the minister, called me and said, "Are you people well at all? You are throwing away your TED fund that we have just copied and is doing well here." So I'm happy that the governors too have drawn attention to that, and that has been taken care of. So plus or minus, apart from derivation and the equity thing, I think they made good inputs, and the bill should go ahead. What we had before now was actually anachronistic, needed change, and they should go ahead, and I think it will make a positive impact on Nigeria's development. Hamas, Israel. We are happy that after fighting for 1 year, 3 months, and a little over a week, nearly 2 weeks, they've decided to sign a deal that we hope that before 16 days expires, as provided for in the deal, they will start negotiating something that will lead to permanent resolution of the conflict, and then Israel's total withdrawal from Gaza. And of course, they could also proceed from there to address the broad issue of the Middle East crisis, which we all know that two-state solution is the solution. There are few international issues whose solution is so clear that are as complicated as this, Middle East crisis. Hopefully, this will be the basis for, pushing ahead to attain that. I do not agree with Prof. That Trump did not make significant contribution. The most credit for this bill goes to Biden. In fact, the draft that was made in May last year, very, very little change, to what we have now. So, Biden, yes. But you see, the Netanyahu and his people were hoping that Trump would maintain a position, would support them in their objective of obliterating Hamas. So they were biding their time. Now, Trump came in and said, look, this crisis will come to an end. He sent Stephen Witkoff to go there. That one, in fact, the approach of that one was so almost militant. He went on Sabbath. And they say, oh, you have to wait this month. He said, no, we have to start the business now. And the Netanyahu and his people saw that the unflinching support they were expecting from Trump would not come. So that has contributed tremendously to the Israelis accepting, to the deal.
So the content goes to Biden, the attitude goes to Trump.
No, to both, because Biden's men were also there.
No, I'm saying the attitude. So Trump has not contributed to the content; he has contributed attitude.
Exactly.
So attitude for Trump.
Exactly.
Content for Biden.
Content and attitude for
Biden.
Men too. Yeah, for Biden.
Okay.
So, credit to the United States.
Exactly.
To the United States. Okay.
In fact,
Right? A very Solomonic about
Yes, one analyst wrote that it is one will have to think back many, several decades to see such, consensus building and working together in times of transition, as they did on this matter. Which is why I agree with you that credit to the United States, both sides sought the need. So we hope that, as I said before, they will build on it and we'll be able to find some stability in the Middle East. Then finally, before, the oil thing, the price fluctuating back and forth. Market forces, when people talk about market forces, I get worried. Because they say they are perfect. They are never ever perfect. And people talk about, socialism, capitalism, government should not have any business in business. Government must have business in business. The scale and extent is all we can debate. You cannot just look, in the United States, there is still some subsidy. In Saudi Arabia, there is still some subsidy here and there. Once things are going overboard, government comes in to ensure that there is stability. So for me, really, the ism that makes sense is pragmatism. Neither socialism nor capitalism. Government must come in at, fortunately, this difference is not much. So they can say market forces can take care of it. But if things are going overboard, government will need to come in to ensure that there is stability in the market and stability in the economy.
Mr. Logan.
Thank you. Let me take
BRICS, Trump, assuming office tomorrow, and all the other issues on the table.
Okay, let me start with Trump. The first time he came into office, he threatened to build a wall between the USA and Mexico, which he never built. So for some of the threats that he has rolled out ahead of time, he may not even have the time to start implementing some of them. But basically, he has promised to make America great again. And Trump has never hidden his position and attitude that it's all about America first. And that's why I'm happy that Israel is also reading the handwriting on the wall to now say, let's come to terms with Palestine and see how this matter can be resolved. And now that they are releasing hostages, I look forward to a lasting peace in that region, because the impact is felt more by emerging economies that are just somewhere, not merely watching the battles, but being impacted. And like it was mentioned, I hope that he will also find a way of intervening in the case of Russia and Ukraine, so that at least the economies of the world can begin to read meanings to some developing economies like ours. And talking about the fuel, it's a very serious issue, whether it's timed market force or whatever fiscal policies. The fact is that we need to be more productive. We had high expectations when the president came out and gave an order to NNPC to sell crude to Dangote in Naira. But was NNPC able to release enough crude for Dangote to maximize his refinery? And what also have we been able to do with our own refineries that we are reactivating? And until we upscale productivity and have abundant supplies, this scarcity in terms of production will affect the prices. And let me say this, I expected that there was going to be a turnaround to upscale the price, that perhaps it was just for the Christmas season for people to relax. And talking about Dangote, he's in business. We have to factor in the cost of doing business. And even when he buys crude from Nigeria in Naira, he still has some components he imports with the exchange rate. So how can we also tame the exchange rate, which is also taking an upward slide as we speak right now, because those who brought in foreign currency into the country for the festivities are beginning to return to base. And talking about BRICS, Lao Tzu said that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So if we are now a partner, I think what we need to do is to build up the nation and become relevant to occupy a stronger position in that space. And like some were wondering, why was our president trying to romance France? I think all this may be necessary for us to sit down and say, hey, where are we supposed to be? And we proceed in that direction. And that brings me to the tax reform. I said it here, that it is the responsibility of the National Assembly, by virtue of Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, to make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good government in Nigeria. But the ventilations we witness are very important. You know, the comments of Governor Zulum. And now all the 36 governors are saying, yes, we are on the same page. But let's look at some areas. And that is the spirit of democracy. You know, talking about TED Fund, talking about the derivative base sharing formula. And of course, when you talk about the federation account, we already have that captured in Section 162 of the Nigerian Constitution. My concern and my expectation is that now that we are having this reform, please, how can we manage it in a way that it delivers on the promises, you know, to unite us further, you know, to synergize the collection efforts and make sure that we have development. And I commend the northern stakeholders for identifying a weakness that is coming their way, which is the fact that, hey, our people are already poor. This tax may further impoverish them. And that must bring you up on your toes to ensure that you begin to reorientate leadership in the northern part of the country, which is important. So some states you think are going to benefit more. What have they done to position them for that maximization? Because when you talk about a business advancement, you talk about the 4 Ps, which is preparation, positioning, projecting, and preservation. So how can you now redefine the fabric of governance attitude in the northern part of the country by developing the people, developing the economy, collaborating to fight insecurity so that you can also attract great businesses into your environment? And then I knew that the president was going to proceed with the National Assembly on this tax reforms bill, and the concerns that have been expressed should be considered by the senators, you know, and the House of Reps member. And I also must commend Senator Ndume, who has always thrown his voice into issues concerning him and his region. But by and large, it's now for the 109 senators and 360 House of Reps member to proceed with the passing of the bills, and they are executive bills, into law. But please implement them in a way that in years to come, we have a Nigeria that is more prosperous than it is now, because there is still that suspicion that, oh, this may be focused more on revenue drive rather than developmental intentions.
If I may, Dr. Ami, there's a point about the tax reform, which I've always wanted to bring up. We have talked about the financial, economic side of that reform. We missed a great opportunity to have a political, economical conversation around that reform. And I'll tell you what I mean. In a country that professes diversity and talks about autonomy or different organs and different segments of the state, with that tax reform, there was something implicit which was not driven home. We missed the opportunity to make a conversation, to make a case of where prosperity comes out of diversity. The idea that we were arguing about derivation or another way missed the point of saying that it is a good thing for Nigeria to have a map where some parts are poorer than others. In the sense that with that, the cost of living will also be lower, the cost of real estate will also be lower. And if the government can guarantee security across the country, there is nothing stopping somebody who's a Lagosian or Lagos-based business to, because of the advantages, be attracted to go and invest in Sokoto.
Which I think is the point that Tabo Yedele was making when he
Yes.
talked about the objective of promoting competition.
It was not driven home enough. It was
And
not
productivity.
And productivity, but it was
Yeah.
not. It was not the cornerstone of the reform. I think that is the missing point. It's a missing opportunity because rather than look at it as, oh, we're going to be poorer, somebody's going to get more than us. That is just the sharing mentality. We need to move towards that productive mentality rather than the sharing mentality.
Incidentally, the whether it is the derivation that takes preeminence or equity, is also linked to that.
Exactly.
Because if you emphasize derivation, then people will be galvanized
To produce more. Yes.
But if you focus more on equity, whether it's like yes, it's like whether or gata, as we say now, whether you work or you don't work,
You still get your pay.
exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, by the way, Mr. Ologun, I thought I had you suggesting that these governors, they were just bluffing. That in any case, they will come around and support the
You're
president.
right to remember that.
Because, they will not want to embarrass the president
Exactly.
in typical Nigerian fashion.
So it turns out
And that's the politics
Yes, it
you were
is.
talking about. Anyway, we've been talking about Donald Trump on this table, in this program. Let's again talk about Trump. Thousands of people gathered in Washington on Saturday to protest President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration. Activists for women's rights, racial justice, and other causes rallied against incoming policies they say would threaten their constitutional rights during Trump's second term. Some in the crowd wore the pink hats that marked the much larger protests against Trump's first inauguration in 2017. They went through downtown amid a light rain, past the White House, and toward the Lincoln Memorial along the National Mall for what has been termed the People's March. Well, the People's March. They did it in 2016, 2017, 5,000 of them protesting against the return of Donald Trump. This is not crying, over split milk. Long after the horse bolted from the stable.
No, it's not.
The Trump presidency is already a fait accompli.
Let me say why I said no.
Okay.
It's also part of the democratic process. These are the kind of things that would make Trump, will stop Trump from going overboard. They are expressing their fears that Trump will go to the extreme. I mean, for now they are expressing, they are protesting the inauguration. But embedded in the protest is not just Trump himself as a person, but the policies of Trump. The things they think Trump will do that will affect them negatively. So these kind of things are the things that would shift Trump's extremes and contribute to America's development. So it's part of the democratic process, if you like. But of course, the elections are won, Trump will be sworn in, but you cannot ignore this kind of protest. They make you know that there are people who will be affected one way or the other by your policy, and they knock you to a particular, they restrict you to a particular limit in your actions.
Well, let me preamble my own intervention for the benefit of those people who go commenting that why are we spending so much time on this Trump thing. Dear viewers, the reason why we spend time on it is that, A, this is a global program that is watched across the world. There are people who are not Nigerians watching it as well. We know from feedback. The other reason is that the importance of America in world politics and the importance of America in democratic institutions and non-democratic institutions makes what happens in America, some key thing, especially things like the ascension of presidency, a crucial thing in global conversation. I hope that puts to rest those people who wonder why we do all this. Now, to the point case, I see Professor Aworawo's point very clearly. I can see to say that, one, I was going to say that their protest is symbolic and does not have any function, and that people must learn to understand what democracy is for. But Professor Aworawo makes a good point to say that by Trump knowing that he doesn't have a totality, he doesn't got 100% of votes, will let him know that people can protest. But actually, I think he has more than enough votes to do whatever he likes. I keep thinking that because Trump's victory was a landslide. So this people's protest is a symbolic protest that shows that there is another America. This, not just Trump's America is there. But the other thing it teaches us, though, which is the bigger thing, is that unlike Trump's own people's protest, these ones are not violent. At least I hope they're not. And at least they're not going to invade the Senate like Trump's own people try to do with his quote-unquote backing, as it were, that way. It is also a lesson to the rest of the world for leaders to know that it is possible to have a mandate and to have a minority against you, and you don't shoot them. You don't gag them. You don't call them names. You don't say they've been bought. You just allow them to do their protest in a very peaceful way, and everybody goes home, and it's part of democracy. So people should learn to accept the results. Leaders should learn to accommodate criticism, and that is what America is showing us.
Mr. Ologun.
You know, I mentioned earlier, and I expect that some should study the personality and character of Trump. I doubt if Trump is moved by that expression, you know. I mean, and if you have monitored how he's been operating, you will realize that. Well, and I also said, he's not likely to implement some of these threats. But it's good that the concerned are apprehensive and they are coming out to express their fears. And it's not only Trump that we manage America. The Congress is there. There are other stakeholders. So, and he has stated it clearly that America for America. And I underscore the fact mentioned that they've been allowed to come out and protest. Nobody is, you know, shooting bullets, blank or tear gas to disperse them. And that is one other thing I must say we can learn from. But how he will run his government, I think by the time he's sworn into office, he has the mandate to exercise executive power. And the Congress also has the mandate to tame the abuse of the executive powers. I just want to advise that for those who are concerned, if there's anything they can do to legitimize their presence in the U.S., do it. But I may be suggesting here that I think Trump will be busier with economy and trade battles than these ones they are expressing. And I think if anyone should be concerned, it should be at the global level, talking about China, talking about, you know, Russia and some other countries, and his good friend, do I say good friend, or in North Korea and things like that, because Trump has that global stature to shake the table. But expressing their concerns is important. America claims to be the front runner in democracy, and democracy gives you the mandate. You know, I was also in front of the White House at the time to also do my protest that Nigeria should start giving good governance. So they allowed that if it's not violent. Okay. And in few days, you'll be speaking directly from from White House there, from the Oval Office. So best wishes to America as we pray that God intervenes in Nigeria and we do the right thing to also begin to enjoy vibrant economy.
Okay, I mean, the People's March is also known as the Women's March. And they are saying that they are fighting over issues about access to abortion. They are also saying that they are not happy about how the election went, the result of the election. About that, they cannot do anything.
That's the split milk.
Obviously.
That's the milk.
That's the split milk, you know. And then they are saying that they are protesting to show their objection to Trump's agenda.
Yeah.
Trump will say his main agenda is to make America great again. But there are implications in terms of the, you know, the basic issues when you break them down. But what we know is that by this time tomorrow, President Trump, the 47th president of the United States, will have been inaugurated. He will have taken the oath of office. And he's not doing it outside. He's doing it, we understand, because of the weather, the temperatures. He's going to be inside the rotunda of the Capitol. Well, he's been compared to J.F. Kennedy in 1961, when, you know, temperature was about 22 degrees. And it was done outside. J.F. Kennedy was not even wearing a coat, because of the weather. And that, went through. So some people are saying, oh, Trump is contemptuous of us. He wants to go inside, he doesn't want to come outside. But in any case, it is prerogative. And by this time tomorrow, we'll have President Trump in the saddle. Let's take a quick, short break. After that, the program will continue. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me, I have Professor Anthony Kila, Professor of Strategy and Development and Institute Director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies. Jide Ologun, legal practitioner and national development advocate, as well as Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos. Gentlemen, let's take our next topic. The Federal High Court in Lagos, Southwest Nigeria, has barred the Federal Road Safety Corps from impounding vehicles with faded number plates or imposing penalties on their owners. According to published reports, the presiding judge, Akintayo Aluko, handed down the decision in a suit filed against the Federal Road Safety Commission by a lawyer, Chinwike Ezebube. The lawyer in the suit, filed on February 13, 2024, argued that as the sole designer and producer of number plates in Nigeria, FRSC bears full responsibility for their durability. Consequently, the agency cannot justifiably impose penalties on vehicle owners for issues arising from the substandard quality of the number plates. I think the judge even went a step further that, well, if your plate number is becoming substandard, it's getting faded, you can go to FRSC, pay the necessary fees, and then, get new ones. But that, your vehicle should not be impounded. You should not be arrested because of a faded plate number. What do you think the ruling is fair enough, Mr. Ologun?
I totally align with that because it's always been my position. Though I don't have
I hope
faded,
your plate number is not faded.
It's not faded, but I was always ready to stand in. They are not.
Okay.
But I even told my wife that I was waiting for this FRSC to challenge me if I ever find myself in a car with faded vehicle. And the questions I was going to ask, the lawyer asked in court, who produced them? They were not produced in my bedroom. You produced them. In fact, we should be the ones suing them. And I'm very happy with this. At the time also, I confronted a decision that was coming, that we were to change our plate number to another one. I said, for what reason? What has happened to what you issued to us? There was a time they came up with these reflective stickers, and they forgot it. There was a time they came out with helmets for motorcycle riders. And I'm throwing a challenge again today. Are these people expected to be on state roads or on federal roads? So there may be more litigations coming their ways because we should respect the rule of law. Even when we try, then is it mandatory that they hang around bad road portions just because drivers must be arrested? And I'm asking, which vehicles are even roadworthy in Nigeria? Those who load their buses as if they are loading a ship on the sea, and they drive all the way through, rubbing hands on the highway. What exactly are they on the highway to achieve? And having said all this, I respect the risk to take to ensure road safety, but is it still about road safety or another thing? And there was also a decision that even the VIO impounding vehicles on roadworthiness, should only do that with public transporters. And I'm asking Lagos State government, please, has road safety measures anything to do with the downforce and the korope's that don't have brake lights and things? Are the laws for gentlemen or for the rugged drivers on the highways? So I think we need to do a lot in ensuring that laws are applied universally. And if the government is looking how in the area to make money on traffic laws, I can consult on that, and they will make billions. And we talk.
Professor Aworawo?
Well, I'm happy about the ruling line entirely with
There
it.
should be transparency and accountability. Anyone that has any faded plate numbers should
not-
please
Now,
confess
let me even tell you this. Let me tell you this.
so that we know.
So let me ask you, Professor Aworawo, is your plate number up to speed or is it faded?
It's a moot question.
Off your mind.
Now, let me tell you why it's a moot question. Some road safety officials think it is not faded. Some others think it is.
Prof, go and change your plate number. But
So, some think it is. Some say they mentioned a particular number of meters, and they stood and they said there was nothing wrong with it. Well, a particular set said this is getting faded. Anyway, when they accost me, they tend to be, for some reason, both police and everybody tend to be more courteous than every other person. Most other people, I see them interact. I don't know why. A group of them, and a lady came to me and said, this is getting a bit faded. Come to our office at Alaka and all that. But that's the point I want to make now. That the amount they are charging is too high.
Yeah.
They say I should come and pay 35,000. I mean, that's too high. For a plate number they made, which has faded in a very short time, and they want to replace. We should pay something, but not that amount. And all the other issues that, of course, Barrister Ologun has raised. The last point I want to make on that is this. Road safety, and with all due respect, officers, they've gradually shifted from what they were a decade ago, a little over a decade ago, to something else. Yes. They were more transparent. They are not nearly as transparent now as they were about a decade ago. And they need to return to, we used to respect them a lot because of their professionalism. Many of them are not like that. I mean, even they don't do it to us, we watch and see what they do. And some of them collect money and things. They were not known for that before, but that's where they have shifted to. So we are advising them that they should return to what they were in days of yore, so that the respect they earn at the time can continue.
For the general decadence. Well, since we are declaring, my own plate number is up to speed because I just replaced it not too long ago. So I didn't know that this brilliant lawyer was going to make this case. I want to take time to commend this lawyer because that's for students of law. That's the kind of case you make in court. You really go to the core of it and you make your points very well. So I want to commend Barrister Ibuke and say other lawyers who emulate that. And the judge, that had the calm and the boldness and the brilliance to examine that case and accept it, I think is a very good thing. As a friend of the court, I think that thing should be noted. I think, like Brother Aworawo has noted, that the FRS is going through some of identity crisis, as is making them almost bipolar, because they're not very clear if they are to make sure the road are safe and the cars are safe, or they are a revenue generating center. I think that is part of the problem we have. If they want to live by their name, road safety, I propose and argue that part of their responsibility should be to identify and report bad roads. To say, let the roads be safe. Let us see, whoever is in charge, please note that these roads are bad. Not to be staying in curves, in angles where people will slow down and because they cannot really and get them. That is a bit wrong. I also think that once they clarify their identity, and this is where the big picture comes in, it will be easier to manage these things by automation. I agree with the lawyer Ibuke and I agree with the judge that because they are the producers of plate numbers, they should be responsible for it. But I also think that the new plate numbers they should be producing should have a sort of expiry date and they can automate it. If they think that thing should last 5 years, 4 months to 5 years, they should start sending you notices and tell you to come and pick it up at the kind of rate Professor Aworawo will want, not the rate they want at the moment, since they're the one producing it. I think that's the kind of thing we have to think about. And when we think this, we can then use their own case to expand into the larger society. For example, the people providing electricity at the moment, if the meter they give you has a problem, you're on your own. I think we need to start having this kind of conversation around consumer protection in the country if we want an effective system.
Okay, quickly, let's take our final topic of the day, Manitoba Hydroelectric and the arbitration going on in Paris. Former presidents of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo and Muhammadu Buhari, as well as the former Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, are in Paris, France, to testify in the ongoing arbitration case involving the $6 billion Mambila hydroelectric power project. And that's according to findings by these day newspapers. This has come just as President Bola Tinubu declared that those defending Nigeria in the case in question are doing so based on conviction and patriotism. The president said he has no intention of involving any Nigerian. Nigeria is accused of breaching the terms of the power project contract awarded to Sunrise Power and Transmission Limited by former President Obasanjo in 2003. And in energy news, petrol prices in Nigeria have increased to between 1,050 naira and 1,150 naira. We've already discussed that, and I've just seen a statement issued by Anthony Chiejina, the spokesperson for the Dangote refinery, explaining, the context, the why and the how of this development. But the issue now is the arbitration going on in Paris. Now, that Mambila hydroelectric project was started 53 years ago under the Gowon administration. And up to now, 53 years later, it's been back and forth. One president will come, sign a contract with the Chinese. Another one will come, will change it. Obasanjo came, he subdivided it into 3 lots. The next government that came cancelled the lot that the Obasanjo government was working on. Savings that have been made disappeared under another president. And then you had Eleno Adesanya of the Sunrise Power saying, oh, there has been a breach of agreement, and now we have, the matter is in arbitration. This is not the first time. And, the International Arbitration Panel is to determine. And you have the Sunrise Group asking for penalties, a lot of money, very embarrassing amount. So, why are we like this? If it is not P&ID, it is Mambila hydroelectric project. A project that's supposed to provide, electricity, over 3,696 megawatts, for industrial development and for public use. Mr. Ologun.
I'm primarily glad that Chief Olusegun Obasanjo is still alive. That contract was consummated when he was in office. And let me say this, I'm not shocked about all these issues about Nigeria. I just hope that we try and quickly rebrand. Recently, some presidential jets were seized across the world, tied to shoddy contractual obligations. And I think we need to be serious. The Mambila project, I did a research on it, I dropped it. But there is one that is even worse, the Ajaokuta steel rolling mill that I think started the journey as far back as 1978 or thereabouts in the First Republic. And here we are today. We are not able to roll out what we should roll out, and yet billions have gone in. And thank God now that NNPC is recovering from the comatose model it ran into out of corruption. But what I know is that Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended says clearly that the state shall abolish corrupt practices and abuse of office. And since this matter is before the arbitration, I wish the witnesses the best, in helping in that case. And, and if there are penalties slammed on Nigeria now that we're already owing, about 130 trillion naira, I think it will make the head shake so much. So I wish Nigeria the best. It's now at the international
But you see, the President Obasanjo, President Buhari, and former Governor Fashola, former Minister Fashola, they are going there to, serve as witnesses.
Exactly.
But the report that I read says that the 2 key witnesses in that case have refused to go there. Alhaji Abubakar Malami, and also, I think Maman Saleh, former Minister of Power. So any good tidings in sight if the two most important witnesses are saying they are not ready to get involved? Professor Aworawo.
Well, this Mambila thing and the arbitration thing makes me very sad. It's an embarrassment. How many countries do you see their former presidents and that is being dragged to arbitration here and there?
Well, these guys were not dragged to.
Yes.
But I get your point.
I mean, yes. There's an issue for which they have to go. Yeah, exactly. They have gone because they want to defend Nigeria, which is good, which is gratifying. But the overall, the arbitration thing that is making them go there. In fact, if you read the history of this Mambila Power Project and that of Ajakuta Steel Complex, you want to say, let us mobilize Nigerians to carry stones and go and stone all those people.
Anybody that was
yes, that's ever governed, except a few. Yeah. A contract was awarded 2003, President Obasanjo. In fact, before President Obasanjo's tenure expired, in 2007, the thing was already, yes.
And tampered with.
Yes, and those, changing the thing and breaking it down that you talked about had taken place even before President Obasanjo left in 2007. Now, under another government, of course, when President Yar'Adua came, Yar'Adua Jonathan, I think they wanted to restore it back to Sunrise, and then they left. Then in 2019, under Buhari, and where Governor Fashola, former Governor Fashola was minister, the thing was cancelled entirely. And then there are a couple of issues. One, that the Buhari government said there are clear evidence that Sunrise got that contract by bribing a minister. In fact, that is the point they are standing on. Yeah. That they didn't get the contract in a normal, fair, manner, and that a contract that was got, of course, that's where Agunloye is involved. In fact, the Leno Adesanya, EFCC is waiting for him here in Nigeria. So you see all of those involved in the matter, even the Adesanya himself is Nigerian. And then all the other, and then we're talking about corruption. And in 2007, before President John left, after the thing was cancelled and then broken down to a different small part. That is where that controversial 16 billion we have been talking about. That the money was taken from, or requested from SS Crude, 16 billion, which has not been clearly explained till today. If the contract was to be 6 billion and 16 billion was taken, there's a whole lot of mess, apart from Leonard Adesanya versus Nigeria. Even among those testifying themselves, there's a whole lot of questions that we don't have clear answers to.
There was a time Chief Olusegun Obasanjo wrote a letter to Buhari, and Buhari supporters rolled out the need to question
the
16 billion.
So the project was of 6 billion, and 16 billion was taken from SS Crude account. After the project was broken down, the whole thing is untidy. But I think Nigeria will do well because there seems to be clear evidence that there was bribery. Yes. The thing was not fairly got in 2003, and that you cannot build something on nothing. And at the same time, he's also Nigerian, I understand.
When it comes to money, it doesn't matter. Stop
saying
it's Nigeria.
No, but
we're talking
billions
about
all of those involved, one way or the other. So it's an embarrassing thing, but I wish Nigeria were. I'm confident Nigeria would come out of it. But after we come out of this, we just hope that we'll be able to raise our level. Yeah. Let us be respectable. So that all of these back and forth.
You think Nigerians are capable of changing?
Yes, we need ethical renaissance. And if that takes place, all of these messy things will not happen.
Okay, all these partnership agreements, settlement agreements with regard to Mambila Hydroelectric, leading to arbitration. What is the status of the project itself?
Well, that is even the biggest.
We are talking 16 billion and all of
what
that.
Have we done with it?
That's the question.
That is the biggest disaster.
Project?
Now, that, like you said, it's supposed to give us 3,600 and something megawatt. Can you imagine? All the power we are using in Nigeria today is about 4,000.
What have they done?
It's about 4,000 megawatts. So if we had 3,600 megawatts added to the 4,000, you know where we will be. You know how that would, impact development, productivity and all that. So when the question is asked, why is our level of development low? The answers are clear.
Professor Kila?
Well, I think most of the things that have been said, there are just three things I would like to add to it, because, there's a personal thing. Fashola, Obasanjo, I'm happy that they've gone. I'm not shocked. I'm surprised at Buhari's presence there because he's not known for such selfless acts. He has to be dragged. Even Sean will put a panel. So, maybe there's a new Buhari emerging after he has finally succeeded in being president and almost wrecked Nigeria. Maybe he has done better and Nigeria has done worse, because that is very unlike him to be participating in general conversations like this one. The other side, the question I wanted to ask, you've raised it. Never mind how they got the project, never mind what has happened. What is the status? What have they cooked with all these ingredients that they've bought and all the chefs that were involved? That's a big question. The other thing is, I think somehow we need to learn a very simple principle. Pacta sunt servanda.
The sanctity of agreements.
Of agreements. It's a very crucial thing in all kind of relationship. And the other thing that we need to perhaps evolve into, and maybe here Dr. Renabati, who the public should know is a certified expert of international relations and diplomacy now, international law and diplomacy, perhaps can help us evolve a theory on a caveat, on a clause of international contracts, to say, in case of a new government that reviews the contract, while we're signing it, let us agree what can happen and what cannot happen. I think that is the next level. That is
that's why you have an arbitration clause.
Yeah, but
so
exactly.
That if things go wrong, you go to arbitration.
Oh, but I go further.
I define it.
But I go further. I say that during the crafting of international contract with sovereign states, it is good to include the possibility where a new government might review it, especially for developing countries. I want the viewers to note that there are countries in the world that have been doing international agreements for decades, for centuries, and they do not run into this kind of trouble. While I like to say there's nothing wrong with us, I think this is a case against my principle. There is something, if not wrong, peculiar about us. But it is not us, the people. It is those few same leaders that put us in this kind of embarrassing position. And just like Professor Aworawo wanted to go and stone them, before stoning them, it is good to point out that there is something wrong with these people managing the affairs of Nigeria, representing Nigeria, and embarrassing the rest of us. And I think we need to state it very clearly.
Well, clear enough. The problem is leadership.
It's leadership,
As
yes.
Chino Achebe once said.
Let me just say one thing.
Yes.
Professor Kila said he's surprised that former President Buhari went. Yeah. There is something in the news, there is some controversy that says that President Buhari threatened former President, President Tinubu rather, threatened former President Buhari to go there. And his aides have been saying, no. It was not threatened. The Minister of Justice just visited to explain to him why he needed to go. And, as an elder statesman, he had to go there. He went on his own volition and all that. Whatever the case, his presence, we are confident
will aid
Nigeria's position.
And we need sincerity of purpose. Ab initio, if the intention is not sincere, the engagement of the contractual terms will wobble. I mean, we are talking about Mambila here. What about Nigeria Air? You see? So for how many are we going to throw up? The Zianis, the all of them.
Exactly.
Nigeria needs to breathe. And I hope somewhere.
The presidency has made it clear that nobody going to the arbitration panel in Paris was forced to do so.
Contrary to
that the persons we have named voluntarily, out of conviction and patriotism, decided to defend Nigeria's interests. That's what we've been told. I think that should be enough for our purpose.
We stick to the bulletin.
But thank you very much, gentlemen, Professor Kila, Professor Aworawo, and Mr. Jide Ologun. You've been watching Tuesday Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati from my entire team here in Lagos. It's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.